Hello and welcome to Great Britain in Focus. I'm James McCullough.
And I'm Pascal Mary Rakovich.
Recently, Russ Fairman sailed out of Southampton with a small crew on a 10-week pilgrimage, marking 100 years of the charity Stella Maris. This small boat is sailing right around the British Isles, enveloping it with prayer.
Russ and his crew are stopping at over 50 ports and shrines, and they made their pilgrimage to Walsingham, walking 10 miles to get here. Fortunately for us, a storm picked up and they were stranded here an extra day, so we got to go and meet them and learn more about this inspiring adventure and mission. Hello and welcome to EWTN Great Britain. I'm Pascal Mary Rakovich, and today we are not in our studios in Walsingham. We are a few miles north on the coast, Wales next to the sea, with Russ Fairman, who's on a very special mission, sailing around the British Isles. So we are on his boat. Russ, tell us what's going on.
Well, we're a week in. We're in Wales next to the sea, which is a tiny little place, as you know. And we crawled into here under cover of darkness, assisted by the harbour master, with a crew of pilgrims. And so we're safely tied up here now. And this is Wales next to the sea. And our next port of call is going to be Grimsby. But this is a journey that started in Southampton on the 29th of April, and it'll take us 2.5 months, 10 weeks, and we'll travel around the whole of the British Isles, and we'll come through the Pentland Firth, up underneath the Orkneys, then travel to the Western Isles, the Outer Hebrides, and then we'll swing underneath the Isle of Skye and come back into Glasgow. And then from Glasgow we'll travel to Northern Ireland and then down the coast. So we'll visit probably 60 different places, and this is all in aid of Stella Maris, actually. And can I tell you a little more about Stella Maris?
Yes, tell us about Stella Maris.
Well, many people know that. So it's actually is a real charity steeped in history, especially in the Catholic Church. And it started in Glasgow in the 1920s. So 100 years since that time, they've now established a team of chaplains in the UK, but across the whole of the world. And they're doing upward of 70,000 ship visits a year in the support of welfare for fishers and seafarers, which is quite stunning. And the work they do is a beautiful outreach to some of these guys that are at sea for 9 months at a time, no access to what we take for granted in terms of services and communion. So I've been a supporter with my wife Deirdre for decades. Our little parish has collected for them, etc. And I do know them well. But I was approached by a friend of mine called Nick and Neil, who is a senior chaplain, and said we'd like to celebrate this 100 years of Stella Maris with something that gives us a fellowship, something that creates a sense of belonging to the one organisation. And of course they're established in their teams all around the British Isles and elsewhere, of course, but they wanted to do something that was nautically based, and I've done something like this before, sailing around Britain for a charity. So they approached me, and my wife Deirdre gave me a pass to leave the home for another 2.5 months. Permission. Yeah, so we pulled together a plan back 2 or 3 years ago, when it was on the actual anniversary, but with COVID, of course, we had to postpone it. So this has been a voyage in planning for nearly 3 years, and it's finally come together. So we're underway.
So this is really celebrating about 100 years of this charity, Stella Maris, which used to be called Apostleship of the Sea.
You took the very words out of my mouth.
That's right. And it's and it wants to help fishermen and people who are out at sea, stranded, very vulnerable, and make sure that when they arrive back, because some of them are away from their families for months at a time, is that right, 9 months or 12 months?
Yes, the foreign workers. So the industry is made up with seafarers that come from all over the world. A strong contingent from those would be the Philippines, which is a very Catholic country. Yes. And as you know, there's a desire for communion, and they have that desire, and they just don't get access to that. So they're supported in that endeavour. But the work they do actually is quite beautiful. It's quite gentle. So they'll go onto a ship, they'll bring gifts.
These are the volunteers that work for Stella Maris.
Yeah. Yes. And the crew know they're coming. They can see the little shopping bags with the Stella Maris gifts within them. People, supporters, make little woolly hats and things. But those gifts, as trivial as they sound, they're an act of love, and they precede, really, the real gift, which is that that gift of prayer, which is what the Stella Maris chaplains bring onto the boat. And there's some wonderful stories that they tell of how they've been supporting that mental health and that spiritual need on the boats. So it's a very worthwhile charity.
So, and among those people who go onto the ships and visit will be priests bringing Holy Communion or able to say Mass on the ship?
Well, there's many deacons who are chaplains.
Yes.
We have a chaplain aboard today, Steve Willows, and these guys are very well trained and averse to bring communion to ships, so they do that as a service. And of course there's practical things too, very practical things. So the turnaround of these ships is fast. It never used to be so fast, but it is now. So they might have 2 hours in a port or less, and to get to a dentist, to go and buy some provisions that they really need for reasons, then those things are provided as well with minibus support. So there's a practical aspect to this as well.
Yes.
Some of the guys, I was told a cute little story actually by Julian Wong, who's the chaplain for East Anglia, where we are at the moment, and he was saying that there was an Indian crew, and he asked them, "What can I do for you? You know, I'm here to help." And
that's the big question, isn't it?
What
do
can
you
I
need?
do? What do you
How
need?
Can we help?
How do I need? And they said, "Could you take us to a park?" And he drove them to a grassy park, just an open area. They took their shoes off and they stood in the grass with their bare feet. So they're walking on steel for the whole 9 months, which is a strange thing. And the men just stood there with their eyes shut, with their bare feet, just standing on the earth, on the grass. I mean, it moves you to tears, doesn't it, to think what we're deprived of in these situations. But the other aspect of what we're doing, of course, is that we're sailing around the whole of Britain with a crew that is changing. So the crew is coming as a pilgrim.
Yes. So this is the trip that's happening now.
That's happening now.
Yes.
So this is a celebration of Stella Maris, bringing their supporters together. But the actual event itself really is I describe as a sailing pilgrimage. And I've been on pilgrimages myself, walking pilgrimages, Santiago de Compostela and that kind of thing. And I know the journey that you take. It's kind of an inward journey, although you're taking a physical journey. And sailing is an environment that really is conducive to pilgrimage, because you're out in God's creation. You're made to feel a little bit vulnerable, and God's always calling us to lean on Him and rely on faith. He wants us to rely on faith and stretch our faith. And many of the crew have never sailed or been on a small boat before, and they're intentionally making themselves vulnerable. And I kind of like that from someone who's leading it, because I know that's what the Lord wants from me, is to step out of a comfort zone and go beyond my own capacity, so that I can do things with Him, for Him, and I can lean on Him to support me. So being at sea has this wonderful experience of being in God's creation. We've passed already dolphin on the south coast and sea lions, and that'll just increase as we go to the north. We're in the season for puffins at the moment. They're in season with their silly beaks, with their clown faces. And so we'll get the joy of being in God's creation. We are part of His creation. And this pilgrim experience is really enhanced by being at sea. And I'm sure you can picture that. But what we're doing as we sail along is we're praying for the towns we pass. So this is something that is really dear to me, that prayer has power. And Mary is the patron of Stella Maris, Our Lady, Queen of the Star of the Sea. And she is interceding with us. So as we pass each town, we're conscious of their names, and we press into the coast and we pray for the people of that town, for their well-being, for their economic success, and then we'll come ashore. But we've been sailing the boat, we've been cooking, and we've been doing practical things, but really we haven't really fallen far out of prayer. So it's an intercession for others, but it's also a time of a personal journey and personal healing as we go. And we're praying, don't forget, for a renewal of our land. So this intercession is for things that we believe need prayer into the towns we pass. But ultimately, we're putting a big hug around this country, or countries, this group of islands, and it's our firm belief that this will bring about the start of another renewal at some point, a revival in our country, of a turning back to the Lord. And we're going to saturate this coastline in prayer. And another part of what we're doing is we're very conscious of the people that have been before us, that evangelised this pagan nation. And I've got on the website, sailingpilgrimages.co.uk, a whole list of all the pilgrimage routes that we pass. So as we left Southampton, we go along the old way, which is the Thomas Becket pilgrimages. It's 135 miles, goes along the coast on the South Downs, swings up to Canterbury, and then we have the St Augustine walk, which is round. Then we go into the Rochester pilgrimages, we get to Gravesend. As we come up this way, we're passing St Sed's Church of St Peter's, which is Bradwell, and he sailed down under the instruction of Aidan to come and help King Sigbert to bring evangelism. So, you know, these men were on their own, and women, you know, Hilda, etc., and they formed communities which were serving people. So they preceded their good news story with an act of love, and they were helping the poor, and over time, as we know, this became a Christian nation. We need to do that again.
So you're really travelling with the saints that
Consciously
evangelised our land. And I mean, there were many young people last night who came to see you and to hear you, and your talk was so inspiring. I could see they were just perched on the edge of their seat. But you're inviting everyone you come to speak to join in prayer, so that you're the one sailing, but we're accompanying you also with our prayers, because we all want this revival. We all want to pray for the land.
Really do. Everybody wants that, and
Yes.
it's I wouldn't say it's a sense of urgency, but it's a sense that if we don't pray for this, who is?
Yes.
Right? And obviously from that prayer, it requires invitation and action. And I'm just hoping that people will be inspired by this activity, that in the fellowship that's formed in the parishes, that they would be a parish with an open door, where they're inviting their colleagues, their work friends, people in the street to come and see, but they do that as a community, as a group, you know, not just as individuals. I'm getting a lot of lovely gifts as we come into the ports, and people have been giving us gifts of food, and at Harwich there was some parishioners that came down from Ipswich actually to join the Harwich celebration, and Adrian brought me a homemade cake that he made in the afternoon, which was absolutely delicious, and Simon, his friend, who's a farmer, had made us some sausages from his own pigs that he brought, so we were well treated there. But coming into Walsingham, Rick Jones, the deacon at Walsingham, was very kind enough to present us with something to take on the voyage. And I'm just going to show you that now, because it's something absolutely beautiful.
It must be very special, because there's only so many things you can take on board.
Well, there are, and it's small enough to be able to bring this, but isn't this wonderful? So this is a replica, really, of the statue of Our Lady that they have in the Slipper Chapel, which is at Walsingham, which is a really holy space. And this is something that we're now going to be continuing with. We do actually take in the Our Lady of the Taper in Cardigan, so I'll be taking this, I think, into the shrine in Cardigan. So I'm linking the two shrines in a very unique way, aren't I, with a sailing pilgrimage, connecting the two. So thank you very much indeed, Rick, for this wonderful statue here, which we'll look after and take on the voyage with us.
Thank you for joining us. Goodbye and God bless.